Hello, everybody. I'm here to give you a brief summary of Chapter 2 of a book written by John Lewis called Across the Bridge. This is Chapter 2. Chapter 2, he talks about patience, having patience in the chapter. And I'm just going to give you several points that he gave in the chapter. Number one, he says the value of restraint under the circumstance can be so under any circumstance can be so profound. He says that ideas that come about for the community, for the country, for example, things that are going to benefit people can take years sometimes to get signed. So you got to have patience. He says waiting acknowledges we are not prime movers in all things. He says patience is the guiding light that will affect all of change. Ways. So he talks about in the chapter that in Alabama they were putting a lot of things in place to stop blacks from voting. And he says one of the greatest pieces of legislation that was ever put into place was the Voting Rights Act of 1965, signed by Lyndon B. Johnson. What they did was, with patience, he says they exposed years of their work and waiting and patience exposed years of injustices that were in place in Alabama. But it took years. It didn't happen overnight. He says people today still are attacking the Voting Rights Act that was signed in '65. He talked about voting. He says voting is the most powerful nonviolent tool that we have to create change. He says some struggles take a lifetime and some struggles take several lifetimes to come into place. He talks about in the chapter how in the 1920s there was something brought up where there will be a national museum to honor the accomplishments of African Americans in the country, and this took 100 years. In 2020 or 2015, it finally was passed into law that the country would go forward with the creation of this museum that would celebrate the accomplishments of African Americans. So that took almost 100 years. So he talks about patience. We have to have patience. Okay, things are not going to happen overnight. He says that if you're an activist, one of the main things you have to have is patience. And you also have to educate yourself. Educate yourself on the things of today, the current events. Find valuable sources on the internet, on TV, in books, and educate yourself so that you know you're going in the right path. So this was chapter 2 of John Lewis's book called Across the Bridge. Chapter 2 is called Patience. Thank you.